Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Once again, it's a blessing, and we thank our Heavenly Father for being here. This evening's presentation is a little bit different than what we're used to. The topics that we're going to discuss tonight, you may say, what are we talking about these topics for? We're talking about topics that are about addiction or abuse, or some things that maybe we don't really talk about much during our classes. So you may be asking why. Why are we talking about these things? Well, the reason is that many people in this world, and some people that we even are familiar with, are suffering from many of these things that happen in their lives, and maybe possibly suffering in silence, and hence the topic is break the silence and step out. So the reason to go over these things, the reason to discuss these things, which sometimes may be uncomfortable for us, is because we are the ones who may be able to offer a helping hand, to sort of touch that person or reach out to that person or that individual that's suffering in silence and that's going through something that they don't know or they're not understanding, and maybe we can help them to understand. And that's what this evening is all about. It's about reaching out to those that are in need and those that are suffering in a way that we can, and help someone reach out and touch someone who is in need. So this evening's presentation is Break the Silence and Step Out. And we're in connection with Mina, and many of you know Mina. She's Brother Brad's wife, Mina Moore. Brother Brad is here. In Awe Foundation. So without further ado, we'll start with Brother Brad coming up and giving his educational insight.
Good evening, my brothers and sisters and friends. Many of you know that my name is Brad, but probably the most important thing I'm going to tell you tonight is that I'm also an alcoholic. And I stand before you tonight sober, only by the grace of God. What does an alcoholic look like? I mean, if you were to go by the movies, okay, you would see usually the person who's disheveled in the long coat, maybe living on the streets, maybe living in the box, okay, walking around the brown paper bag. Not reality. Although those people are affected by alcoholism and drug addiction, that is not your norm. What is the norm is people like you and me. It could be your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, husband, wife. It could even be your own child. The second question is, what is your definition of an alcoholic or a drug addict? If I went around the room and asked, which we don't have time for, there'd probably be just as many answers as there are people. But if I can simply explain it to you, okay, it's someone who has lost the ability to control their drinking or their drug use. Question 3. Do you believe that alcoholism and drug addiction is a disease? Or is it just a weakness of character? Or maybe a lack of willpower? Make no mistake, my brothers and sisters. Alcoholism and drug addiction are diseases, or if you will, illnesses. And let me show you why that is. The American Medical Association has classified drug addiction and alcoholism as a disease. There's 3 main characteristics that have to be present in order to be classified as a disease. Primary. Okay, now primary means either you have it or you don't. The second thing is alcoholism is also chronic. Okay, now chronic means that it's long lasting. The third thing it must be is it must be progressive. Even though that my alcoholism is in remission today, because I didn't find it necessary to pick up a drug or a drink, So the condition of it, okay, is at bay today. But that doesn't mean, okay, that it's not continuing to grow, okay, within me. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, after being sober almost 24 years, if I were to pick up a drink or a drug today, I would not go back to where I stopped originally 24 years ago. The consequences and the severity of my addiction would be as if I never stopped during those 24 years. So what happens to people like me if we, God forbid, we relapse? It's going to be a short story, folks. So what makes an alcoholic different from the normal tempered drinker? That's always a good thing. What makes it click? Even a normal or a heavy drinker. Well, the first thing is, I will tell you that I react totally different to alcohol than you do. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, my first experience was when I was 13 years old. I went over to my friend's house because his parents were going away for the weekend. He asked me to stay there, and his grandmother was there, asked him to keep him company. I never went there with the idea of drinking. That's not why I went there. But what happened was, as soon as his parents left, I walked into the family bar. I proceeded to drink. I got drunk. I blacked out. I passed out. And I woke up in my own pool of vomit. Now, if the average normal tempered drinker did that, they would go, man, I don't think I'm doing that too soon again. But not so with the alcoholic. You see, when I woke up, okay, and I was feeling like, okay, the thought of not doing it didn't occur to me. What occurred to me is, I can't wait to do it again. Now, that's insane thinking, right? Most people would say, hold on, it's like, I'm not going to do that again. Not so with us. Because I'm going to tell you, the reason why that's so, okay, is because I drank for the effects caused by alcohol. I liked that feeling that I derived from entering that drug into my system. Now, was I escaping from something? Yes. Okay. Was I not real with myself and honest with myself? Yes. Was I in flight from reality? Yes. Was there other things that were wrong with me? Yes. The bottles were just a symptom of something else that was going wrong with me. Now, the average normal tempered drinker, okay, drinks for sociability. Maybe they enjoy a glass of wine because they like the taste. Maybe it goes great with the meal. Maybe they do it just to relax. Not so with the alcoholic. The sensation that I get from drinking alcohol is so elusive that even though I know that I'm killing myself, I can't wait to do it again. That lifestyle seemed normal to me. It was okay that I did that. And the bottom line is it really wasn't okay. There's this thing called the phenomenon of cravings. And what happens is, I'm coming off, say, a drink or drug, whatever, okay? I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontented, until I can experience the sense of ease and comfort that comes with a few drinks. When I took the bottle cap off a bottle, I was throwing the bottle cap away because I wasn't going to need it, because I wasn't going home until the bottle was either finished or somebody had stopped me. Usually they had a badge and handcuffs. There's also a thing called the mental obsession that occurs in the alcoholic. And that mental obsession is so elusive that I believed that every time I picked up a drink or a drug, it was going to be different. That I was going to be able to drink just like you folks. I was going to be able to control and enjoy my drinking. That day never came. But what happens is, for me, when it enters into my system, it tastes like more. 1 is good, 2 is better, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, who knows? Okay, that's even better yet. My story is certainly one of progression. You know, I experienced other things, I got into other drugs, okay, and it turned into a train wreck. My story could easily be described as a series of losses and lost opportunities. I got a scholarship to go away to college because I was an all-state soccer player. And by the time 2 years had come around, I had a cumulative average of 1.75, and I was physically unable to keep up with the competition, and they took my scholarship away. And you know what? They should have. Because I just wasn't doing what I was supposed to. Drugs and alcohol became so important to my life that I couldn't fathom anything else but. I'm 27 years old. I'm married. I have a business. I have a house. And within a short period of time, it was all gone. The business was gone. The house was gone. The marriage was gone. The license was gone. And I entered into a rehabilitation center for the first time. The problem was, I wasn't ready to hear the message. And when you're not ready to hear the message, you're not ready to hear the message. So, what's the solution to this whole thing? Well, if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, there has to be a psychic change or a spiritual experience that happens to this person. When alcoholism and drug addiction goes untreated, there's 3 endings to the stories, folks. Jail, institutions, or death. And I'm here to tell you, the people I ran with in high school and in college, okay, they're either in recovery or they're no longer with us. Every addict or alcoholic, before the solution can penetrate into their mind, must hit a bottom. I pray that the bottom I had is sufficient enough to keep me sober today with the help of God and other 12-step fellowships. The second thing is that strength and power that gives me the ability to stay sober must come from outside myself. No human power could have relieved my alcoholism, but God could and would if he were sought. So the solution must be centered in God. This is the only disease that I know that's mental, physical, and spiritual in nature, but is treated only by spiritual means. The other thing is that I know that I've been given a gift. But it's only a gift if I give it away, right? So I need to give this thing away on a regular basis to those who are just like me. The other thing I must do is I must carry the message that I receive, this wonderful gift from God, wherever I go. 6 things that I do on a daily basis to stay sober. 1 is I don't pick up a drink or a drug. Right? That's pretty obvious, I think. The second thing is I have to be honest. I have to be honest with myself. I have to be honest with others. I have to be honest with my loved ones and tell them what's going on with me. I have to be humble. You see, it's by the grace of God that I'm here today, and I'll be forever grateful for that. I have to be tolerant of others' defects and the shortcomings that people have. Because you know what? When I see somebody doing something that I don't like, I might as well just put in a mirror up there because it's probably something I'm doing myself or have done myself. I have to be accepting. Accepting of different ways of doing things, accepting of things I cannot change, accepting of people as they are. And last but certainly not least, I have to be grateful. Sometimes I wonder if I'm grateful enough for this great gift that's been given to me. In closing, God did 3 things for me that I was unable to do for myself. One is He loved me enough to send me the message of hope. God removed from me the obsession and compulsion to drink, never to return to this day. And the third thing He gave me was a new spiritual family. Either the family I have in other 12-step programs, but more importantly, the family I have here tonight. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming out. You have no idea what it means to me and to my wife. You see, my family is just not my natural family. It's my brothers and sisters. Because you guys loved me when I couldn't even love myself. You guys never gave up hope on me. You gave me a second chance in life. And I'll never, ever forget it as long as I live.
Tonight I want to talk about drug addiction and how it has directly impacted my family and how we've navigated through it the past few years. I'd like to talk about my son Matthew, starting with a bit of his background and what ultimately led to his addiction. Matt had Stevens-Johnson syndrome, or SJS. During that time, he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and he received 150 shots of narcotics for pain. And he also had Xanax for anxiety. When it was time to send him home, the nurse handed me a Xanax prescription and told me to monitor him and watch for signs of addiction, and not to give him the bottle for me to hold on to it, which I did. After that, around 2010, 2011, Matt tore his ACL meniscus playing softball. He had to have surgery and was in excruciating pain. I was there to see that. But he didn't take any medicine due to the Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Once he healed from surgery, he started to get healthy again, wanted to go to the gym, which led to a shoulder tear. We didn't know this, but since it was very painful for him, he went to a pain management doctor. You see signs, pain management, just beware about that, in New Jersey, and he was given oxycodone. This is where the downhill spiral starts. An opioid pain medication that is similar to heroin, both being very addictive. A lot of people who get addicted to oxy often move on to heroin because it's much cheaper. Thankfully, Matt wasn't one of those people. After a few weeks of taking oxy pills, Matt told this doctor he felt he was becoming dependent on these pills. The doctor's reply was, "Yeah, that can happen." And he continued to write scripts for him, and Matt's dependency grew more. Within what I believe was a couple of months, Matt moved to Virginia, where he lived for 2 years. All the while of him being in New Jersey and him being in Virginia, we all had no idea he was battling an oxy addiction. In late 2012, he moved back to New Jersey and he started working with Jeff. Since they've worked together in the past, we knew his habits and how he worked and everything, and he kept missing work, making up excuses of not feeling good, his stomach hurt. He seemed unreliable. I went to his apartment and told him he better go to the hospital right now and get looked at. We're going to get some answers. He didn't go. That same day, his girlfriend at the time, who was also unaware of the addiction, became aware when Matt finally told her. She immediately called Jeff, who went straight to Matt, and Matt told him everything. Jeff told me that evening. This was now in early 2013. The weeks that would follow were crazy and chaotic, to say the least. We didn't know where to start. This was uncharted waters for our family. We called a trusted doctor, and he said first and foremost, Matt needs to get into detox, where he be medically supervised to wean him off of oxy. It was hectic. Jeff was looking into detox centers, while I was looking for rehab facilities day and night. Finally, we settled on a place. Matt spent 5 days in detox here in New Jersey, and when that was done, he decided on a rehab in Delray Beach, Florida. We prayed this would be the right place for him out of the countless other options, and I now believe that it was. Post-rehab, Matt stayed in Delray and moved into a halfway house for the next year. He was monitored and had to report to his superiors. He also had to work and pay his own way, And I believe that Matt grew immensely during that year and learned a lot about himself and became very self-aware. He told us he could see the difference in the people who really wanted the help and those who didn't. He was able to focus on himself and his recovery. But what about everybody back home while Matt was in Florida? We needed to understand what happened, what addiction is all about, and what we needed to do. As a unit coming together who loves Matt, we were determined to help him stay alive and away from drugs, even if it meant not enabling and showing tough love. Jeff and I found a support group, Families Anonymous, in Verona, near our home, and leaned on them for support. We went to weekly meetings there for over a year and still keep in contact with some of the families. I also came up here to Hackettstown every Thursday night for another meeting on addiction. After going to these meetings, some things became apparent. We quickly realized this was an epidemic, and we were nowhere near alone in this war. So many young people were dying every day because of this. We learned we cannot, under any circumstances, enable the addict. No money, no babying, no sugarcoating, no nothing. You are dealing with the addiction, not your loved one. I believe addiction really is a disease. It has a stigma attached to it, and most addicts are stereotyped as delinquents, people with no moral compass, and no loved ones. This is the opposite of what we found to be true. Sure, those can be true, but when visiting Matt in Florida, we met the young people and all the families standing behind them. There was this one man who said, "I don't understand this." He said, "These are good kids from good homes." The center here in Hackettstown explained that out of a group of young people who experiment with drugs, for one or two, life goes on, while the other one or two have a lifelong battle to fight. I think something else worth noting is Matt said he never took Oxy to get high. He took them to feel and function normally while doing day-to-day things. Along the way, he had to increase his dosage because that would be his new normal. When he tried to stop, he'd feel too sick, and he would go right back to take the pill. Looking back on it, he said if he had realized while in the thick of it how easy it was to detox with medical professional help, he would have done it a long time ago. My advice is if someone you know has an addiction, be informed and don't wait to intervene. Get help because it is out there. There doesn't have to be as many tragic endings as there are. Today, Matt has been drug-free for 3 years. He is married now with a baby boy on the way any day now. We are so thankful Matt was one with a happy ending.
My name is Mina, and like Brad says, I too am in recovery, and that is how we met, and I don't mind breaking my anonymity. We appreciate the opportunity from everyone in our foundation to be here tonight, to share not just my story, but the success stories. And that brings tears of joy because some parents are fortunate. My mom is fortunate. Brad's mom is fortunate. They have us living and alive and well. Most folks, I will tell you, most parents lose their children. So let me get on with the story. My story I'm going to tell you in many turning points. And it begins with this. I had started drinking very quickly, probably about 19, I would say. And I'll just go fast forward and wasn't able, by the grace of God, and recovery, of course, to be sober I remember I was about 34 years of age. That was my first, quote unquote, shot at recovery. I am not a first time, how do we say this, winner. And first time it was 3 months of sobriety. The next time was 3 years of sobriety. And by the grace of God, it's now a dozen years of continuous sobriety. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Because now I have the opportunity to pursue a dream. But that's not the only story. Because as you can see, we did not put that poster up yet. But our foundation is this way, very quickly, 3 circles. And pretend this is the heart and that is us. So the 3 are abuse, addiction, and anger. So that being said, my story began like this, as I said. I was 18, started drinking, okay. the progression got worse in a matter of the 19, 20 years that I was drinking. I went from a party drinker to basically a park bench drinker. That is my story for drinking. So how does and where does the domestic violence come into play? Well, the violence comes into play for the first 7 years of my life, from when in 1992 we got married up until 1999. I was being abused, but that's because I tolerated it. My parents didn't teach me that. I learned that. I learned that because I could not do anything else. I was so ashamed. I was part of a culture that you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to get divorced. Oh, I had so many self-esteem issues. So many things were going on in my life. But I knew that there was a purpose for me. Somehow deep inside I always knew, I just didn't know what it was. Didn't know what it was. And here we are today, talking about a dream that has become a reality. So I was introduced by a gentleman named Jim Isett. He lives in Pennsylvania. He was an introduction through my brother. And this is how God works. God works through people. So he introduced me to a recovery program. And going back in 1999, I came in, couldn't stay. 2000, couldn't stay. 2001, finally, that was my day of awakening. September 17th, 2001, I will never forget. I remembered that day like it was yesterday. Because I knew. I said, you know what? I have a problem. And I need to do something about it. But I know after I was saved, if I may, there was another purpose for me, and I could not discover what it was. Because my thoughts were muddied, there was no clarity in my thinking, there was no clarity in my decision-making, and there was absolutely no focus whatsoever when it came to moving forward to make any healthy decisions. So this gentleman mentioned, of course, recovery to me, and we did eventually struggling, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. Eventually, thank God for my family, we were able to get sober together. I was in a hospital through one of my detox visits, I call it, and he had told me the most amazing epiphany I've never really had, sitting in front of Dr. Patel, one of the local hospitals up in northern New Jersey. He said, did you know? He said, were you aware of the reason why you drank and you do drink the way you drink? And I go, what is he talking about? I don't drink. I don't drink too much. Of course, absolutely, I was lying. I did, because it was already too late. And I had already crossed that line, as we call it. There's a line. And he said, well, it appears to me, and in my professional opinion, he put it in his report, that you are the typical case where the domestic violence was so great that you could not handle it. You didn't know how to step out of it. And because of the shame, guilt, and remorse, we hear this, folks, all the time. And it's true. I couldn't step out of it, yet I didn't know what to do. I felt as though I had made my bed, I had to lie in it. I am telling you emphatically, if you know someone, if you have someone, this is the reason the foundation is unique, because I, as the founder, have the experience. I understand what it feels like. I can relate, but I'm also no longer a victim. We do not even use that verbiage anywhere. It does not exist on our website. It doesn't exist anywhere on our materials, because I chose to be a victim. My mindset is we all have choices in life, and that's what coaching is all about. So if I have a problem, it's time for me to do something about it. Thank you, God. I said, maybe I need to look at myself, because my dad was one of the few people who boldly but honestly told me the truth. He says, you need to worry about you. Don't worry about the children. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about a job. Don't worry about school. Don't worry about anything. We just want you not to drink. 2001, came into recovery, and I found the most amazing feeling. My life got better. Things were happening, and I knew I had arrived. Unfortunately, life happens, as we all know. People who we love dearly do pass away. And of course, I was expecting God to create a miracle and say, hey, bring my dad back. Unfortunately, God had different plans. So my dad passed away, and I used that as a crutch and a reason and an excuse, to be honest with you. So once you're an addict or an alcoholic, you just can't go back. That's just the way it works. Came back into the 12-step recovery program, realized, okay, I've been humbled. Okay, I made a mistake. Let's get back. Life got better again and again and again. Now I'm all the way into 2005, 2006, working in New York City. Oh, this country girl working in the city life was awesome. Awesome. Could not make life any better, so I thought. Well, it just gets better, folks, because here we go. Here's the climax. So from 2006 to 7, 8, 9, I'm in corporate America, gratefully, financially became very successful and continued with the help of my parents to raise beautiful children. And here we are. In 2009, the big hit, the layoff, the economy, the downturn. But by the grace of God, I did not make that choice to drink this time. Did not. So, that's when my miracle, second one, happened. Because that's when I realized that God has a purpose for me. And this is an opening to do anything I have dreamed of. I remember it was September 2nd, and I knew coaching was the thing that I could do for the rest of my life. I don't care if I got paid for it. And let me tell you, life was beginning to form again. So, again, we created the foundation back in 2011, formally and legally. We are a 501c3. I am not going to talk too much about the foundation because of the fact that we have a website. You could certainly visit it and go there. But what I am going to do is deliver on what I said I would, which is how do we, each of us in this ecclesia, deliver to the people outside when we perhaps don't want to say anything about the fact that you have any personal issues with it. Perhaps you don't feel comfortable, you don't know about any 12-step recovery programs. Certainly, there are hundreds and thousands of resources out there, and yes, we are one. So how is it that you care when someone talks about these awkward topics? Well, that's the reason we organized, thank you, Jeff, this. Because you can feel comfortable by doing it simply like she did. Sometimes people are doers, sometimes people are talkers, some people are connectors, some people are all of the above. The only question you need to ask yourselves, folks, is which one are you? Are you a caller, texter, emailer, or connector, or do you like to have a cup of coffee face-to-face? Use the power of social media, connect with them. Send them a private message if you're on Facebook. We feel different. You cannot understand, and I'm not singling you out. But you cannot understand unless you've been through it. But what you can do is what Brad does very well. And a lot of the brothers and sisters know, I know you know, what you're doing right now. What are you doing right now? Exactly. Give a moment of your time to just listen. But be present, make eye contact, listen to what they are saying. The other way is to connect. How do you connect? Well, there are many ways to connect with people, but I have found that sharing about myself is always number one on my list. Because we all know our own stories. Send an email, drop a note, send a card, send them flowers. Just drop by their home. Hey, how you doing? I just checking in as just in the neighborhood. The last one is to commit. When it comes to commitment, we provide coaching services that are quite unique in the sense that we complement it with counseling. So recovery is possible for those who want it and those who need it and those who are committed to it. That's the key. Seek the help, get the help. It's out there. Recovery coaching is not just for the people that are afflicted with abuse, addiction, or anger, but also affected. Break that silence. Step out. Make a difference in someone's life. You may not have that issue in your life, but do something for someone else.